Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Justin Mars with us. Justin, thanks for coming on the program again.
Thanks for having me, man. Glad we're representing Team Snapback.
Exactly. I'm glad you got that memo. It's important, I send that memo to everyone, and only some of them actually come on with an actual snapback, so thank you for that. And also, did I just butcher your last name? Is it Mars or Mares?
A little bit. It is Mares.
Yeah, as I'm saying it, I'm like, if it was Mars, there probably wouldn't be an E in it.
Yeah, it's cool. My high school principal at graduation, when I got my diploma, was like Justin Marez. And my girlfriend at the time was like, "Ooh, it sounded like a Latin lover or something."
You might want to maybe put those little accents on it somewhere.
Yeah,
kind of exotic. I dig that. That's how you do it. Well, so for people that don't know, although I think a lot of people do, your claim to fame is the Traction book. You've done a lot more than that, but that's where people have seen your name. The Traction book, I think, was a big deal because it was the first book where it actually laid out the different kinds of marketing options available to any company. So you could basically open it up and be like, all right, I need to market what I'm doing. Well, here's I don't exactly know how many, it's like 10 to 20 different options. You could use PR, you can use paid traffic, and it's just like it walks you through how all of the primary things work. And it also helps you think about what things you should do and shouldn't do based on the kind of business you are. And so it's funny because I recommend that book all the time. If someone's just trying to get a lay of the land, figure out what to do, I'm like, well, you need Justin's Traction book. I mean, he's going to give you the best head start on all this stuff. So what's been kind of the reception? I mean, that was back in 2014, 2015. You came out with that.
Yeah.
What's happened with the book since then? I mean, it seems like it's taken on a life of its own. It's got a new cover design, all kinds of stuff going on.
Dude, it's been amazing. I mean, so we launched the first version that we basically self-published in 2014. And so since then, we have sold, I guess the first year we sold like 30 to 40,000 copies. We then got it picked up by a big publisher, Portfolio Penguin. They redid the cover, put it in bookstores, did the whole thing. I saw it in the San Francisco airport bookstore when I was there randomly, which was cool one time. And so they did that. And at this point, it sold like 60 or 70,000 copies.
That's awesome.
And the reception's been amazing. I mean, it has been so cool to see companies like Buffer, who bought the book for every one of their employees, went through the Traction framework on like a team retreat, and they did all of this, and then they went from like 3 to 15 million in revenue or something like that. Yeah. And I'm not saying, that's causal. Like, we certainly didn't cause that.
Correlation, whether it's causation, there's still something there,
Yeah, but it's super cool that some of these amazing, successful, fast-growing startups are using our book and using the framework and using the approach that we talked about to really scale and grow their business.
Well, it's funny.
It's super flat.
I find myself once every couple months Googling on Google Images for Traction bullseye. Because there's this one image. I think it's in the book, but if it's not, it's everywhere, kind of summing up, the book. And it's just the easiest visual way to be like, okay, I got my head straight about marketing now.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah. I appreciate that. I think I made that in Keynote in 2014 or something.
The best stuff, it's about the truth, the information. It's not about, the complicated nature of it. And that's why I like the bullseye framework is it's not complicated. Anybody can glance at it and get it. It's that the content is actually good and what you put on there. So that's awesome. I just want to kind of get an update on the book because, I'm a fan of the book. I'm a fan of your work. All right, the new stuff you've been doing, though, it seems like the main thing you're focused on right now is something called FOMO. It's actually a website. Is it usefomo.com? Is that right?
Yep, usefomo.com.
All right, usefomo.com. I love this app. I love what it does. I love what it represents. I actually just got reminded of it right before this interview, and now I'm going to go buy it for my companies after this interview because it just hit me I need UseFOMO in my life. Tell us, what does UseFOMO do? And then we'll get into some of the science and psychology behind it.
Totally, yeah. So at its core, I'm sure many of our listeners have your listeners, not ours.
You can have them too. You're on here. You're part of this thing now.
I'm sure that many of your listeners have been to hotels.com or booking.com where they've seen something that's someone in San Francisco just booked this hotel room 2 hours ago. And so what that does is that massively improves conversions. It provides social proof and does it all in a real-time way where people are all of a sudden going oh, there are other people booking this thing. There are other people looking at this. I'm not the only person in the world wondering if I should stay at this hotel.
So just to be clear, you're not saying it's a part of the review system. You're not saying
Right.
it's a part of, the site. You're saying that it's almost like a pop-up where it's like in a real time. It's like, oh, this person just bought this and this person just commented on that or whatever. So there's all these little pop-ups happening as you're browsing the site, letting you know other humans are taking action on this site and you don't want to miss out, thus FOMO, fear of missing
Exactly.
out. Right?
Yep, exactly. And so, Booking.com is one of the top converting websites in the world, and they are utilizing these social proof mechanisms to drive and improve their conversion rates. Airbnb just implemented something similar. And so what FOMO does is it allows you to use the same social proof on any website, on any platform that you want. So you could say like, someone just signed up for my newsletter, someone just signed up for this product, someone just bought this ebook, someone bought this thing, a support ticket just got resolved, someone's looking at this blog post. Whatever it is, you can have FOMO display it to your users. And so it makes your site kind of come alive and show what other people are doing.
That's exactly what I was thinking, is come alive. I remember back when all websites were static. Remember that? Like before blogs.
Yeah.
Before there was like new content.
Like American flag gifs.
Exactly.
That you
or an email gif of a mailbox opening and something, and like a letter going into it, that kind of stuff. And like I remember browsing the web back in the day, and it felt static. It felt like something was missing, even though I didn't know what that something was. It felt dead, right? And then I remember blogs came out, and it was like, oh wait, reverse chronological order, new content. All of a sudden it feels alive. Like there's a human writing something every week or every day, however often. There's people commenting on it, and it felt alive. But now you go to sites, and even blogs feel kind of dead. Like it's, we're so used to them now. And so when I see, what you're doing with usefomo.com, it's almost like the next evolution to make a website feel alive that's still new enough that when you go to a site that has this implemented on it, you actually feel like you're almost a part of something. Like, even though you don't have an account yet, you're a part of the community. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we think it's a really cool layer of like, instead of just saying, hey, there's this other blog post, hey, we also sell this other product, it brings in some sort of social layer where you could see like someone in Tampa Bay, if you have a blog, you could say you're reading a blog post and you could see someone in Tampa Bay just finished reading this blog post. So it's a way of like surfacing other content or other products if you have an e-com store to customers in a way that they may not have discovered this other stuff that you have previously.
Absolutely. Why is this so powerful? I mean, I don't know if you've dug into the psychology of it or if you just say, hey, it works. I don't care why. But like, what's going on in the brain? What's going on with, consumerism that makes this so powerful?
Yeah. So there's this thing where a lot of people are afraid of missing out or of being the only person to do something. Like social proof, as Robert Cialdini talks about in his book Influence.
Which everyone should read, by the way.
Totally.
That book is like, I feel like I have a superpower because I read that book. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, I know. It's one of the only books that I review it every year just because it's so good. And one of the things that he talks about is like, we're social animals, social creatures, and we want to know that we're not the only person doing X, Y, or Z. And so what FOMO does is like, when you're on the edge of saying, I want to buy this product, I think it solves a need that I have. I've read the reviews, I've read the attributes. FOMO can help push you over by saying like, look, 4 people in the last 2 hours have purchased this product in these parts of the country. You're not alone. You're not the only person doing this. And it can give you just like that extra impetus to buy the product.
Yeah, that's awesome. And and that's the thing about this that's powerful is it's hardwired into the brain. Like, you're not trying to talk people into feeling this way. You're not trying to strong arm them in to viewing the world through this lens of FOMO. They don't know why they feel this way, and they do. You're not introducing something. You're, for lack of a better word, exploiting something that's already there.
Well, yeah, and it's also just like you're surfacing things that are actually happening. Like if I go to a restaurant, one way that I go, oh, this restaurant is good, is if I see a bunch of people in it, I see a line out the door, I see a bunch of people are in the cafe.
Exactly.
Now, that's not necessarily exploiting an individual. It's just showing that like there's something good that is attracting a lot of people.
Yeah.
If you have the same dynamic on your website, right now there's not really a good way to display the fact that like a bunch of people love this product and are buying it all the time.
Yep.
And FOMO kind of solves that problem.
You know what's funny is like I have Stripe hooked up with Slack. So when I get new sales on my different properties, I'm getting pinged all day long. And you think about it like that's my dopamine. You know what I mean? Like I have a channel called Growth, and every new sale from everything I own, it just all day long, bing, 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 bing. And when you were telling me about this before the interview, I was like, wait, that's like me making that public. That is
Yeah.
massive social proof, that like,
Totally, man.
you're not alone, this stuff's working. But right now, I'm the only one that gets the social proof, and I'm the only one that doesn't need it because, of course, I drink my own Kool-Aid.
Totally.
All right, that's awesome.
It's pretty amazing. Like we have some sites like Pura Vida bracelets. They installed our thing and they saw like 250% increase, and in terms of conversion rate, because like every couple minutes people are seeing like, wow, people are buying.
Yeah.
And the second cool thing that they saw is they saw an increase of the number of other products that people bought when FOMO was installed versus sessions when it wasn't, when they ran a split test.
Yeah.
Because if I'm looking at one bracelet and I see someone just bought like this Hawaiian bracelet that looks like it has a cool design, I might click over there and also buy that, like it's just a cool way to expose other products and content.
That was another question I had. Is this primarily for e-commerce? Is it primarily for SaaS? Does it matter? It's just kind of, you can throw whatever you want at it.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, but we've seen most of our customers are pretty heavily concentrated in e-commerce.
That's what I figured. I mean, e-commerce is the thing where buying decisions are pretty quick and frictionless. Yeah. You want to buy a new thing, and a little bit of social proof can really accelerate that process. Where SaaS is a little more deliberate, a little more considered. It's an investment. Usually it's a monthly investment. So FOMO helps, but it may not tip them over instantly the way it would with e-commerce.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. So let's talk about how you actually came to be the owner of Use FOMO, because it wasn't something you built from the ground up. It was actually an acquisition, right?
Right, exactly.
So did you find the site in the wild and think, that's cool, I want to know more about this? Did they come to you saying, are you interested in buying this? Like, just tell me what happened, because I think it's super interesting how acquisitions work, because it's sort of a black box for almost everyone. Like, most people never experience one firsthand, so they just don't know how that magic works.
Yeah, no, it's very true. So it was interesting. I saw FOMO and wanted to install it on an e-commerce property I own called Kettle and Fire. We have a bone broth product. And so I installed it. I saw our conversions basically double, and I was like, whoa, that's super interesting. I like this app. It was just on Shopify at the time. It was called Notify. And so I reached out to the owner and was like, hey, we're actually thinking of transitioning off Shopify in the near future. Do you have this available on other platforms? And basically he wrote back and said, hey, we're not sure if we're going to make it available. I'm actually thinking of getting rid of the business, and just was like, well, we should chat because I really like this. And I think that this should exist on all of the other platforms, should be available as a JavaScript install. And so my partner Ryan and I, Ryan Culp, who's the most talented partner in the world. He's amazing.
Yeah.
We basically, over the course of 38 days, went from getting dinner with this guy to actually buying FOMO.
That's awesome.
And owning the app. And it was like, great, now we have to figure out how to scale this thing.
Yeah. So what is that process? I mean, when you build it from the ground up, it's like, every detail of it. You've had a marketing plan in your head when you started coding the first line. My assumption is when you acquire something, the go-to-market, the marketing strategy is tweaked or different, or just,
Totally.
So what is that like when you have this asset that already has customers, already has a footprint in the world, but you got to take it to the next level? What does that process look like?
Yeah, it's very different. So when you're starting something from scratch, you're like, okay, how can I spam my friends and write a blog post and do whatever to get the first 50 customers? You know what I mean? For us, we came into a situation where we were doing tens of thousands in revenue already. We were we had thousands of customers, and we're like, okay, how do we grow this? How do we improve the growth curve instead of just how do we get our first 10 users? And so for us, what that meant is how can we optimize our existing assets, which is a very different thing than how do we get the ball rolling on this thing in the first place?
Yeah.
So what that meant for us is let's build this and put it on other platforms. Let's add more images to our Shopify listing. Let's fix some of the bugs. Let's build new pricing tiers, build new features that people will pay more for, power users, improve reviews, improve a couple things about the listing itself.
Yeah.
And so basically improve conversion rate, reduce churn by fixing bugs, and then allow people to pay you more by building more features that they value.
Do you think it was easier that it wasn't your baby from day one, that you could come in, see all that's broken, and have no emotion about it and just fix it?
Definitely. Yeah, it was amazing. We're now looking at doing more of these. So if anyone wants to sell something, hit me up. But I think that it's such a different viewpoint. we bought something that was 2.5 years old, and there is a very real like slog, especially in SaaS, where it's like you go from $200 a month to $300 a month to $500 a month, and just like 24 months later, you're like at 10,000 a month, and you're like, man, this is great, but holy crap, this has taken a long time.
Yeah.
And for us, we were able to use some capital, acquire that business, and then fix things that the previous owner wasn't necessarily good at, which is the growth, marketing, conversion, all of that kind of stuff. And so it was definitely easier.
I think with an acquisition too, you come in with fresh energy. Like you haven't been through the hard times, so you're ready for the next couple wars you're going to have to fight, and you just got fresh energy to throw at it instead of being like, oh, do I have it in me to figure out the next stage again?
Yeah. Totally, yeah. Like we don't have any of the energy that like the old guy had, where he pushes a feature, the whole app breaks, and he spends the next 4 days doing support. Like
you have none of that in your memory yet. Like it's fresh for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's getting a fear response every time he like goes to push new code or whatever.
Yeah, and you're excited,
Yeah, totally.
No, that's awesome. No, I mean this has been incredible. I mean, first I think the product is just great in what it does, because I think there's a trend toward these simple, lightweight products. You install them with a piece of JavaScript. They do a lot of really heavy lifting, and you call it a day. Like I think about Baremetrics, right? You just install something, it connects with Stripe, and all of a sudden you have metrics on your app. And it's like, whoa, this is like legit, and I did very little work. It has that kind of feel to it. Like it's legit, but I didn't do much to get those results and get the value. I think there's a trend there. I mean, I think that those are the kinds of apps that people just latch onto. So I like the app itself. And, also like the story of you coming in, because it gives us promise and hope of like, all right, when you have an asset that's doing okay, it can do more than okay if you do the things you talked about in the traction book. Like you actually just kind of map out how are we going to, reduce churn, increase revenue. Like you just think about it very logically, and you can get to the next level. You don't have to be stuck with the amount of zeros you currently have, on the monthly revenue. So that's awesome. All right, I like to end with 2 questions that I ask everybody nowadays. The first one is, what are you doing as soon as this interview is over? And it doesn't matter how weird or boring or awesome it is.
So I'm on the East Coast today, so I'll be eating for the first time today.
I ate right before this interview. I had like 10 minutes before we started. I was like, man, I want to get a fish sandwich. So I ran to the grocery right by here. So actually, I'm not hungry for the first time. Usually I eat crazy late lunches. Where are you at on the East Coast?
I'm in the Philadelphia area. My brother's getting married this weekend, so came home. Yeah.
Making sure you weren't in the Florida area. We're going to get coffee if you were.
I'll hit you up, man. I've been to Florida once in like 27 years. So
yeah, well, if you're down here on the Gulf Coast, man, hit me up. We'll hang.
We'll do.
The final question is, what is the best advice you have for any startup that's trying to grow?
Yeah, good question. I would say
just sum it up, easy.
Yeah, I would say go where other people aren't. So like the biggest thing I would do, focus on channels where people are interested, they're spending their time, and yet big brands are not over-invested. Like today, that might be Snapchat, that might be Pinterest, that might be WhatsApp, might be Facebook Messenger. I don't know. But there's all these new channels that are cropping up all the time. I would go where those new channels are and try and see what you can do there, because it's going to be a much more wide open ball game and a much cheaper one.
I love it. When they zig, you zag. When they zag, you zig.
Exactly.
Does that sum it up?
Exactly.
All right. Hey, Justin, this has been awesome, man. Thank you again for coming on Growth Hacker TV.
Awesome. Thanks, man.